Hello all, welcome back to This Day in History. It is June 19th, 2024. Not that that year matters, but it's all about this day. This is a special commemorative day. It's Juneteenth, and we will get more into that here momentarily. But because I'm crunched for time, let's get through this, alright? So, birthdays. We start with 1861. Jose Rizal. He was a Filipino political leader and author. He was born on this day, 1861. 1896, Wallace Warfield was an American socialite. She was basically made famous because she married Prince Edward, who was in line to be the next king of England, but because he married someone outside of royalty, this American socialite, he abdicated, and the crown went to his brother. And so we talked about that a week or so ago, but this is actually her birthday, his wife's birthday. So Wallace Warfield was born on this day in 1896. In 1903, Lou Gehrig, American baseball player. We've talked about him before. He died young, contracting an unknown disease that they ended up naming after him, the Lou Gehrig's disease. Basically, it's ALS. And he was born on this day in 1903. In 1945, Aung San Suu Kyi, I think I pronounced that right, Myanmar politician and opposition leader. She was born on this day in 1945. 1947, Salman Rushdie. He's a British-American writer. I remember him being kind of a household name in the media in the late 80s. Again, he's a writer. He was born on this day in 1947. What was his claim to fame was that he wrote a very scathing book about Islam, to the point that the main Islamic caliphate across the world put a hit out on him. I mean, they were so offended by what he had written, and basically he had called out their their terrorist views, and what's basically all that's not right with Islam, and to the point where he had death threats. He had to go into protective custody. It was, that he ended up having to come to the United States. Again, it says he's British American. He had to come to the United States to seek asylum, refuge from Islamic hitmen that were out to kill him. They would have murdered him in a very brutal fashion, just to because that's the way they do things. Beheadings, slitting of the throats, that sort of thing. That's what I remember about Salman Rushdie. Is I never read the book, but I'd heard that the news reports had said that it was a very scathing book about Islamic life, and about the specifically about the brutality and the barbarism of it. Yeah, good stuff. 1951, Ayman al-Zawahiri was born. He's an Egyptian militant. I do believe that he was affiliated with bin Laden. I think he threw his lot in with the Taliban. Basically a terrorist dirtbag. 1978, Dirk Nowitzki. So German basketball player Dirk Nowitzki. It's his birthday today. I had an encounter with him one time at a Portland Trailblazers game, and I happened to have a ringside or a courtside seat, and he was griping about a call. They've been getting calls their way all night long, and so finally when a call went the right way against Dallas, because he was of Dallas Mavericks, he threw up a fit. He threw a fit at the referee, and I got ticked off, and knowing that he's German and what little German I knew, I know enough German to get me in trouble, that I shouted, you've been getting calls going your way all night. You just take one for the team. And then I called him a Scheißkopf, which is German for shithead. And he turned around and he glared at me. And I looked at him like, what? What are you going to do? Come bum rush the crowd here and come, And he was so mad. He glared at me. He was ticked off. And then he basically griped to the referee to have me removed from the game. And he's like, that guy needs to be removed. Well, why? Well, he called me a shithead. He's, well, I didn't hear that. He called me a Scheißkopf. He's like, well, I heard that. He's like, well, that's German for shithead. You need to remove him. He's like, how about you just play ball and ignore the fan? So just ignore him and go play ball. He was so mad at me. He kept mean mugging me for the rest of the night, that I was down there. And they were down on our end of the court, but it was funny. At any rate, happy birthday, Dirk. You Scheißkopf. I said that jokingly, of course. All right, this day in history, 1846. It's actually the very first organized baseball game happened on this day in 1846. And it's noted that it's a baseball game that is organized based on the current rules that the game is played even today. And it was organized by Alexander Joy Cartwright, and it was the New York Knickerbockers of New York City versus the New York Nine out of Hoboken, New Jersey. And they had a baseball game. Didn't say who won. But today marks the day the very first modern baseball game was ever, I shouldn't say modern, but it was the very first time that an organized baseball game was played. 1865. We talked about Juneteenth here. Here it is. 1865, Galveston, Texas residents learn of the Emancipation Proclamation 2 years after it was declared. The Emancipation Proclamation was an edict that was issued by President Lincoln, basically declaring that all African American slaves in the United States are now free. He even so boldly went on to declare that included the Confederate States of America, because he was that confident that the North was going to win, and that when the states were repatriated or brought back into the fold again, that would be law of the land and that they would be declared free. Slight problem with that is that while he can make this bold declaration, there is no legal weight around it. That's what the 13th Amendment is about. When the 13th Amendment was passed and was ratified and passed, that made that Emancipation Proclamation an actual legal statement. Because, as you know, Congress makes the laws. The president only enforces them. A president cannot make a law. I don't care, Obama. You know better. You were a law professor. You know that you can't do that. I digress. So, June 19th is celebrated as the day of the Emancipation Proclamation. So, it's synonymous with freedom. It's synonymous with the ending of slavery. So that's why it's important. That's why it's a good thing. 1867. Mexican Emperor Maximilian is executed by a firing squad. Don't know what he did, but it's pretty harsh when your own emperor is put before a firing squad and executed. 1910 is the very first Father's Day celebrated in Spokane, Washington. 1934, the federal FCC, it's the Federal Communications Commission, is established. It's organized in the United States on this day. I think all of these were, SEC, FCC. I think these are all part of the New Deal that was brought forth by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It was part of getting us out of the Great Depression and in getting us back on track. I think it was part of that. So 10 years later, the Japanese naval fleet, a combined naval fleet, and the U.S. Fifth Fleet clash. The Battle of the Philippine Sea begins. It starts this day, and it's on sea as well as in the air, and it would conclude with a U.S. victory the next day. In 1961, Great Britain recognizes Kuwaiti independence. 1963, so we're back with the Vostok 6 again, right? We talked about Valentina Tereshkova being the first woman in space in 1963 when she was with two other cosmonauts in the Vostok 6. The other day we had, we had stated that, it went up. Yesterday, several days ago, Vostok 5 went up. Then yesterday, Vostok 6 went up. Is that right? No. 2 days ago, Vostok 6 went up. At any rate, today is the day, in 1963, when Vostok 6, who had Valentina Tereshkova, they returned to Earth. Remember, in yesterday's video, it was said that they had a 41-hour flight in outer space, and they did, I want to say, like 71 revolutions around the Earth. I can't remember, but at any rate, so she returns. In 2013, on this day in 2013, James Gandolfini, American actor, he's done quite a few roles, but he's really mostly known for his role in The Sopranos. He was on vacation in Rome and died on this day in 2013 of a heart attack, he was a good actor. I liked him. He was in Crimson Tide. He was in, he's been in a lot of stuff. I mean, like, he wasn't just known for The Sopranos. He did some other stuff too. 2016, the Cleveland Cavs beat the Golden State Warriors for an NBA title. Why is that significant? Because that wasn't LeBron James, was with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and if you ask LeBron James, he'll tell you that he's the greatest basketball player of all time, that he's the GOAT. No, he's not. I personally don't think that he could have held Michael Jordan's jockstrap, but that's just me. The featured event of this day is 1953. We go back to 1953. It's during the height of the communist scare. It's the McCarthyism, his runaway antics with, like seeking out the Red Scare everywhere. At any rate, it's on this day that in 1953 that Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed for espionage, and they would go down in history as the first American civilians to be executed for the crime of espionage, despite the fact that there was an overwhelming show of support for them, and there was there was a letter campaign and all kinds of stuff that they were seeking clemency for them or mercy for them. It's in some circles it's believed that the evidence that the government had against the Rosenbergs was very circumstantial, and I suppose it all depends on who you talk to. There are some who believe that they were not guilty of espionage whatsoever, and that it was a political witch hunt, that if you had any kind of ideology that even remotely leaned towards communist red, you were an enemy of the state, and Senator Joseph McCarthy went out of his way to try to hunt you down and take you out. If you've ever seen the James Woods movie Citizen Cone, it was about Roy Cohn, who was a very aggressive counsel or special appointment prosecutor on behalf of McCarthy. He actively went out of his way to go after people. I mean, Lucille Ball, because her husband was Cuban, because Ricky Ricardo was Cuban, right? Lucille Ball was accused of being a communist, and it was all based on association, and that was the blight of the 50s. Really, I mean, the 50s had some great times, but they also had some worse times. I mean, it was racism was still an issue. This whole communist scare thing was an issue. Everyone feared the boogeyman, in some fashion or another, and yet it was supposed to be an age of enlightenment. When you look at the culture of the time, the music, it was a pretty enlightening time, and those who grew up in the 50s would tell you that this was the decade to grow up in. Similarly, my generation, we would tell you the 80s that was the decade to grow up in. Absolutely. So the 80s was to me what the 50s was to my mom and my dad. But that's the thing is with all the economic prosperity that they had, they also had a lot of really backwater, not with the times, social ideas, and they were really that far behind. Again, racism. They still wanted to hold on to the Jim Crow laws. They still wanted to keep the whole separate but equal thing. They didn't want, they didn't want the coloreds to have, and I use that because that's a term that was used back then. They couldn't be bothered to have coloreds and whites to be looked at as equals when they are. It's like, if you truly believe in what you wrote, Thomas Jefferson, then you would have recognized that the slaves that you held also were created by the same creator that created you. And that by your own logic, when you say that all men are created equal, endowed by the inalienable rights of their creator, then, Mr. Jefferson, you should have realized that that held true for the slaves that you held as well. So, off on that soapbox. I gotta get to work. That's this day in history. It's a beautiful, gorgeous day out today. Blue skies, warm weather. It's June. What do you expect? So I hope all is well with you on your end. I just got out of the gym. I'm still having some energy issues, but yeah, just keep plugging along, right? That's all you can do. At any rate, have a great day. Be blessed. Take care, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow for June 20th. All right? Bye.